the magnitude I didn't think could get bigger than Russiagate, but now it seems like we're doing Russiagate 2.0. As I've said before, all roads lead back to Russiagate. If President Trump decides to run again, these are attacks now on a presidential candidate like Russiagate was.
So, in the last episode, you're on record as saying that this whole thing is on par with Watergate.
It's worse. I think this entire situation makes Watergate look like the teacup ride at Disney World. We had political operatives break into a building to steal information, which is 100% criminal, and people were prosecuted, and rightly so. Now you have a 6-year saga of criminal activity from Russiagate to the raid. And it's the same people at the FBI and DOJ who started and launched Russiagate that are now supervising and doing the Mar-a-Lago raid, the search warrant, and the efforts to take down a president. So it's just an extension of that. And the mainstream media is covering it and applauding it because they want one thing: for Trump never to run again. It's not all roads lead back to Russiagate just because it's the same people, but because the same people are trying to bury the same information. And it's been reported in the press since we did our last show, which I called before that this same crew of counterintelligence guys at FBI and DOJ want to hide from the public the 40% of documents that Devin and I found during Russiagate, but were unable to get out to the public. The documents that President Trump declassified while he was president of the United States. And now we see reporting in the media that that was one of the reasons, if not the main reason, for this raid to occur. So I tell the audience, stay tuned. I called it long ago that all roads begin and end with Russiagate, and I think we're going to be proven right here on Cash's Corner. This is the modern day version of Watergate, except the only difference is it wasn't political operatives breaking in to their opponent's headquarters. It was the FBI and DOJ busting in to the home of their political opponents. And if the facts play out the way we think, then a lot of people are going to be held accountable, just like they were rightfully so for the violations along Watergate at the highest levels of government. And I think that people will criticize that analogy, but I can't think of a better way to encapsulate it for the American public, because that's one they can all relate to. And it was egregious then. It was a gross violation of the law by the highest levels of the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the White House. So with the FBI, I do agree it's fixable. I think you shut down the Hoover building immediately. I think you literally opening it up the next day as a museum of the deep state. And you let everybody walk the halls for free and leave that behemoth open 365 days a year. You need like 20 people in a skiff to run the FBI. The other 7,000 agents that are sitting in that building should be chasing criminals around America, not distorting statistics about January 6th so Chris Wray can go to Congress and lie and say domestic violent terrorism is on the rise.
Why do we have to have an FBI? I mean, I understand because somebody's got Bonnie and Clyde cross state lines, but beyond that, why do we've nationalized a lot of state crimes. Yes. Bank robbery is a state crime. Why is it suddenly just been, no, FBI will take care of that?
And that's sort of it's a lethargic slide to that. One of the things I call out in the book is Republican state attorney generals. They have 26 or 27 of the states in this country. Why aren't any one of them prosecuting, for example, any one of Hunter Biden's crimes that happened in their state? As if that weren't bad enough, and I've said this before, Danchenko is like the new version of Christopher Steele. But what we didn't know, what is actually breaking, exploding news, is Danchenko is was a paid informant for this FBI. Danchenko's history is he was hired by Fiona Hill at Brookings Institute to be a research assistant. Fiona Hill, who knows Christopher Steele and introduced him to the whole parade of characters, including Bruce Orr and folks at DOJ, hired Danchenko, Christopher Steele's source, to be a research assistant. Then, shortly after that, the FBI comes in and says, hey, not to the public, we are investigating Danchenko. What were they investigating him for around circa 2009-10? Do you know, Jan? It's crazy. Basically trying to buy classified information and sell it to a foreign government. This guy that's now charged by John Durham, some 10 plus years later, who was Fiona Hill's research assistant. And I believe it's no coincidence that Fiona Hill knows both Danchenko and Christopher Steele and the likes of Charles Dolan and Fusion GPS. I've always called on the need for her to be investigated by both Congress and the DOJ for her involvement in the biggest government criminal conspiracy in U.S. history. Danchenko, it was some point determined by the FBI after 2 years of investigating, we're not going to bring a charge. So what do? After Christopher Steele gets terminated by the FBI as a source during the Russiagate investigation, because what did Christopher Steele do? He lied to the FBI and he went out and talked to the media. Can't do that if you're a source. They fired him. As if it wasn't enough corrupt activity to bring in Bruce Orr, a high-level DOJ prosecutor, to be the Steele cutout so that the FBI could continue to get the information that Steele was producing, even though they fired him. They hired Danchenko. Danchenko was Christopher Steele's source. Now we know that. We didn't know that at the time, of the Steele dossier. So while at the same time they're using a DOJ prosecutor cutout, the FBI comes in, fires one source, and hires his source to funnel false information. So now this guy's on the government payroll for the 3-4 years we were looking at Russiagate, and no one told us about this stuff. We sent congressional subpoenas out. We asked not just for Steele's involvement in this, but any and all informants. And we weren't told about this, and thankfully John Durham has figured this out. But now you have even less confidence in our FBI, because Christopher Wray was supposed to expose this corruption. He should have said in day one, 4 years ago, after Steele got fired, well, we also had this guy, we're not going to hire him, and we should have prosecuted him years ago. And so thankfully John Durham is taking the right approach, I think, methodically, to lay that out for the public to see, as we've done in these hearings, in these pleadings. But to answer your question, what John Durham wants to do ultimately is say, Danchenko, yes, he was a paid informant who was fired by the FBI also, but more importantly, he wants to tell the jury that Danchenko did things that were borderline criminal in terms of his actions right after he left Brookings Institute, or maybe while he was there, about trying to acquire classified information and sell it, which is illegal. So, when you're talking about the main sources that stood up the biggest criminal conspiracy in U.S. history, and the DOJ and FBI were in on it with a political ally in the DNC, it's going to be very hard for the American public to regain any trust in the DOJ and FBI. And I'm the guy that's still out there saying, we need one. We need a DOJ. We need an FBI. And I get a lot of flack for that, because people want to completely do away with it. And I said, no, we have to completely fix it. Maybe this is step one. Maybe the world will finally pay attention. But we're just going to have to wait and see. I think that trial begins in, 2 or 3 weeks.
One of